Hello there folks, my name is Spoonks and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Chat. This is the show where I break down the top 5 domestic box office results, see where each movie landed, and see how well each movie did. So let's get started. Number 5 was Lord of the Rings War of the Rohirrim, opening with $4.5 million this weekend domestically and $9 million worldwide. This is the 8th biggest opening for an animated film this year. It was able to top Piece by Piece and Hit Pig, but it still sits behind the Garfield movie, Transformers 1, The Wild Robot, Kung Fu Panda 4, Despicable Me 4, Moana 2, and Inside Out 2. Yeah, I didn't have a lot of expectations for this movie, and this still didn't really meet those expectations. I thought at least 5, maybe 6 million was on the table for this. I didn't think it would do less than that because, this is still attached to Lord of the Rings. It is still like animated, it's the holidays, maybe people would be curious to go check this out, but nope, this was a complete flop. It's been reported that this movie was pretty much just fast-tracked to just keep the rights to the Lord of the Rings, and it definitely shows. There was barely any marketing for this movie, and it seemed like even with the marketing, they didn't really know how to sell this to the public. Did they sell it as an anime? Did they sell it as a new Lord of the Rings movie? Just all over the place with this film. I just feel like they just didn't know what to do with this and just said, here you go. Like with a lot of movies I've talked about this year, this felt like a liability. They just had to get this out once again, and they've even admitted to just getting this out there just to retain the rights to Lord of the Rings. So at least they get to keep the rights, I guess, but this is still going to be one of the biggest flops of the year, certainly of the holiday season, with a $30 million budget and with the big competition on the horizon. I don't even think the Christmas legs are going to even be enough to help this movie out. The word of mouth doesn't seem to be that impressive. It got a B cinema score rating, which is way lower than the peak of the Lord of the Rings, even the Hobbit films. Not very good things here for this film. I just don't see it really doing well in the weeks to come. But hey, at least, like I said, they got to retain the rights, so the movie did that job, I guess. Number 4 was Gladiator 2, making $7.6 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $145 million and a worldwide total of $398 million. So the film was able to pick itself back up, only dropping 39% from last weekend, which is very impressive to say the least. I thought, that was a sign, that last weekend's drop was a sign of things to come for this movie. Maybe the word of mouth was finally starting to set in, but it seems like maybe I was on the wrong end of the stick there. It does seem like this movie's stabilizing its audience a bit, and with the solid drop, it seems like the word of mouth may not be as bad as what we once thought. It's still got a long way to go of catching up with the other 2 big films that came out around that Thanksgiving, but this is still pretty impressive to see the staying power for this movie. Again, it seems like interest is still there, and in terms of milestones, it's on its way of surpassing 150 million domestically and 400 million worldwide. That's all good said and done when you don't consider the fact that this is a very expensive movie, said to be at least $250 million. It still needs to get to that doubling point. I'm not sure if it's going to. It's probably going to just barely get over that. Again, the international numbers have been very strong, and maybe with the Christmas legs, it'll get the bump it needs, considering that this is pretty much the big R-rated action movie. We'll talk about the other one in a sec, but yeah, still an interesting performance for this movie. Had it not been as expensive as it was, this would have been a completely different story. It would still have been a decrease from the first film, but had it been like 150 million, I think, still at the end of the day, the movie's still doing pretty well. It didn't really need to be the first one again, but with that $250 million budget, it's still not where I think it needed to be, and I'm sure the studio is a bit disappointed that it still hasn't gotten there, but still not a terrible performance. I don't think it's really that upsetting. Again, it's starting to turn its ship around, and hopefully, once again, with Christmas on the way, it gets that Christmas bump that'll get it to some much needed milestones for itself. But as is, it's still not where it should be, though. So yeah, it's still very interesting numbers for Gladiator 2. Hopefully it starts to pick up, but I'm not sure. Number 3 was Kraven the Hunter, opening with $11 million this weekend domestically and $26 million worldwide. This is the lowest opening for a comic book movie this year, sitting behind Madam Web, Joker Folie à Deux, Venom The Last Dance, and Deadpool and Wolverine, and it is the lowest opening for any of the Sony Marvel movies, sitting behind once again Madam Web, Morbius, Venom The Last Dance, Venom, and Venom Let There Be Carnage. Oh, Kraven, you poor sweet little movie. Oh my goodness. I don't know where to begin, folks. I had some modest expectations for this movie. I didn't think it would be the next Venom or anything, but I thought, the R rating, the fact that it had been pushed back for so long and they were holding it like their dear baby boy, I thought maybe, just maybe, the public would see through it. The public might give this a shot. It might be the one to turn this sinking ship around. And it was not. This completely embarrassed itself this weekend, setting a new low for these Sony Marvel movies. I didn't think we could go lower than Madam Web, but this movie somehow found a way. There was less interest for this movie than Madam Web. That is insane. And just the sheer how it's just going to get worse from here, as the word of mouth on this is not very good. It got a C on CinemaScore, which it's not a Joker. It's not a Joker, but it's also not a Madam Web or a Morbius. Those got C pluses. People prefer those movies, Morbius and Madam Web, over Kraven the Hunter. That is not a good sign. And like I said with Lord of the Rings, I don't even think the Christmas bump is gonna really salvage this movie. Just the word of mouth, and the interest is so bad and so low. There's no way they're gonna recoup that $110 million budget. It's just, this seems like dead on arrival. This is just like, what a way to end not only their 100th anniversary, but what a way to end this franchise, as earlier this week they reported that this was going to be the last film for a while of these Sony Marvel movies. Good riddance. I don't think they can take any more embarrassments like what they've been doing these past couple years, because man, this is gonna end this franchise on a dud. People aren't liking it, people aren't seeing it, and it's only gonna get worse from here. I'm not expecting even greater things. I'm not expecting passable things for this movie going forward. This is just a horrendous opening, and it's only just gonna get worse from here. Yeah, this is a really bad opening. But hey, it's out. It's finally out. I guess that's the salvageable. I guess that's the silver lining to all of this. Number 2 was Wicked, making $22 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $359 million and a worldwide total of $525 million. Wicked still pulling in these big numbers. I thought we would definitely be in the slowdown period by this point, but no, this movie is still chugging along. It's now surpassed the $350 million milestone. It's on its way to surpass Despicable Me 4 domestically, and hopefully by any given luck, the film will reach $400 million domestically, which I don't think is out of the realm of possibility. This movie has just been doing so well, and I think, because it was released around the holidays, and with the big holiday coming up and those Christmas sing-along re-releases, that's definitely going to give this movie the boost I think it will really need to get to that milestone. This movie has just been overwhelmingly positive with the fans and just general audiences in general. Many people seeing this for like a 5th or 6th time I've been seeing recently. A lot of people have been really digging this movie, and internationally, while definitely not as big as it is domestically, it's definitely picked up quite a bit. It's nearing 200 million internationally, which is pretty good. I'm hearing it's doing very well in like the UK and other places in Europe. And because of that, it has officially surpassed the $500 million milestone worldwide. We'll see if it can get to $600 million. Again, those Christmas Christmas bumps, re-releases, think that'll do a lot to help this movie out. This movie's just been doing really well. This is definitely the movie to see right now. It has all of the strong word of mouth, strong positive reception, and because of that $150 million budget, it's made a lot of money back for itself. So yeah, not much more else to say here. I think we're still gonna see this movie chugging along, especially with the holidays around the corner. This movie's just done so well. Yeah, what else is to say? This movie's done really good thus far. And finally, let's end the video off with the number one movie of the weekend, which was, for the third week in a row, Moana 2, making $26 million this weekend, bringing its domestic total to $337 million, and its worldwide total to $717 million. So while yes, Moana 2 is still doing very, very, very well, especially worldwide, $700 million is nothing to sneeze at. I do feel like the word of mouth is definitely taking a bigger effect than I think people realize. It fell 48% from last weekend. Not bad for an animated film, especially as we near Christmas. But I gotta say, I feel like the movie has definitely slowed down to a certain degree. Let me remind you, the film is still falling behind domestically Wicked. Wicked has definitely gotten the upper hand over Moana 2 in terms of domestic total. It's like a roughly $20 million difference between the two, and I'm sure with the holidays we could see some increases for Moana that makes it catch up. But given the scale of the film's huge opening and how much of a big head start it had compared to what Wicked started with, you'd think this movie would have surpassed it by this point, but it's still lagging behind it, at least domestically. Worldwide, it is obviously shot super far away from Wicked, but domestically it seems like Wicked is the big movie to see, while Moana 2 is like the second choice option. But still, though, this movie is still doing very, very well for itself. Definitely increased. I'm sorry, definitely don't want to say improved, because this movie's not an improvement over the first one, but definitely increased over the first film's box office performance. I'm sure it'll still get to roughly $1 billion, but I'm sure a lot of people were hoping this would be another Inside Out 2, just that other big animated sequel that just completely dominates the box office, where this one is just, I'd say it's performing more similarly to Despicable Me 4, just doing very, very well, but considering that opening, you gotta wonder, man, had this movie been better, or like at least on par with the first film, you gotta wonder what might have been, how much higher this movie could have gotten had it been a better movie. But still, though, this movie has done so well thus far, and again, on a $150 million budget, again, $700 million ain't nothing to sneeze at. This is still doing really, really well. It's just, I thought we would be, I was expecting a bit more, given the huge opening this movie had. Still, though, this movie's doing very well, and I'm sure Disney isn't really too disappointed by it. I just was expecting a bit more, at least on the domestic side of things. And those were your top 5 domestic box office results for this weekend, but we're not quite done yet, as we've got another week ahead of us and new movies hitting theaters. And this weekend we have 2 new major wide releases just in time for Christmas, starting with Mufasa: The Lion King. This is the follow-up / prequel to the 2019 quote-unquote live-action Lion King, detailing the origin stories of Mufasa, how he became the king of the Pride Lands, and his relationship with his brother Scar. Now, this is an interesting one, because I know a lot of people aren't expecting much out of this movie, especially given the competition it's facing against, but I think this could surprise. Not by much, but I think it could surprise, given how popular musicals have become recently, and this being a musical just in time for the holidays. Obviously Wicked and Moana 2, but also last year with Wonka. I think that could really help this movie out, being the big family musical to see this holiday season. The fact that it's related to The Lion King will definitely help it out. I do see some interest with general audiences, and being the big family friendly film right now, I think will also definitely help it out, especially seeing how Moana 2 and Wicked seem to be slowing down a bit. I'm sure people are hoping for something new, and once again, the Lion King name definitely going to help this out. Holiday season's definitely going to help this out. The problem, though, is it's one of the follow-ups to those live-action remakes, and there's always been a big decline with each of them. Alice in Wonderland, Alice with the Looking Glass, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil. And I see something similar happening to this. It's not going to be as bad as Alice Through the Looking Glass or Maleficent, but I don't think this is going to be the big phenomenon that the previous quote-unquote live-action Lion King was. But still, though, I'm sure this movie's still going to make money. I'm sure there's going to bring in all the Disney fans and all the people who just want to see another Lion King in this style of animation. It's just not going to be what the last movie was. And then there's Sonic the Hedgehog 3, the third installment of the long-running Sonic movie franchise. This time, Sonic and company are facing off not only against two versions of Dr. Robotnik, but also Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, folks, I think this is going to be the movie to see this holiday season. Lion King is definitely the family movie to see, but this is the one that I think everyone is gonna go out to see. It's the big one that has all the marketing, all of the buzz, all of the hype. I think this is going to be the big one. It's not gonna be another Avatar or Spider-Man No Way Home, but this is definitely gonna be the big one to check out. These Sonic movies have their fans, and general audiences also really seem to dig these movies. They love these characters and how they brought Sonic and his games and his lore into the big screen very well. The marketing has been very solid despite starting much later than what The Lion King did. They did a whole 12 hours of Sonic Christmas thing, and that was really clever. They've been doing a lot of promos and stuff for it all over the place, and the buzz is through the roof with this thing. I haven't heard a single person who isn't at least interested in this movie. Just the sheer inclusion of Shadow alone is getting everybody excited, let alone the fact that he's voiced by Keanu Reeves. Like, that is insane. All around, I think we're going to see definitely the biggest opening of this franchise. We're probably not going to see it hit Mario numbers, and given the it's another big family film and it's competing directly with Mufasa the Lion King, so it's going to be interesting to see how those movies face off. But I think Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is going to have the upper hand just through the sheer buzz, hype, and interest is just a lot more prevalent with this movie than it is with Mufasa. So yeah, I think this is going to be the clear winner of the weekend. I have a lot of high expectations. I think this is going to do very, very well, but we'll see how well this movie truly does, as well as the rest of the movies that land in the top 5 on the next Box Office Chat. And that's going to do it for this week's episode of Box Office Chat. What did you all think of the results? Were you satisfied, unsatisfied? Comment down below and let me know. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you like this channel, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on all the social media links right there. And until next time, everyone, stay sharp.